Daf Yomi, Daf Yomi, Daf Yomi, Daf Yomi, Daf Yomi, tracted Bava, page 68b, top of the page, with the words Chadash, Yehoshua. Know that in ordinary cases theft is assumed to result in the owner's despair of recovering the stolen item. In other words, in the absence of evidence to the contrary, one may assume that the victim of the theft has despaired of recovering his item. Apparently, they didn't hold like Rav Nachman of Breslov, who says, "Ein Yehush be'olam klal." There is no despair. Rabbi Nachman, the Gemara's, is a Zovi Rav Nachman from Breslov, maybe, I don't know, I forgot what he holds. Anyway, the reason that the Torah stated that a thief slaughtered or sold the animal he had stolen, he pays the fourfold or fivefold payment. But why is this so? Perhaps the owner did not yet despair at the time the thief sold the animal, in which case the sale is invalid, and there should no fourfold or fivefold payment be. Rather, is it not because we say that an ordinary case of theft is assumed to result in the owner's despair of recovering the stolen item? This concludes the statement of Rabbi Elazar, which clearly indicates that there is no fourfold or fivefold payment if the animal is sold before the owner's despair. How can we even know when the owner had despair? I mean, it's like whatever, yeah. The Gemara asked a question with regard to Rabbi Elazar's assumption, but perhaps the Torah obligates the thief to pay the fourfold or fivefold payment, even if the owner has not yet despaired at the time of the sale, despite the fact that the sale is invalid. Rav Nachman stated, in response to this question, the sages say, this cannot enter your mind. Lo salga daitach, as Rabbi Elazar maintains, that the juxtaposition of slaughtering and selling in that verse states, and slaughter it or sell it, teaches that the thief's sale of the animal is similar to slaughtering it, just as slaughter is a matter in which his action was ineffective. So too, the case of selling the animal is one which his action was ineffective. In other words, the sale is invalid. And if the sale occurred before the owner's despair, in what sense were his actions effective? The Gemara asks another question with regard to Rabbi Elazar's reasoning, but perhaps the Torah requires the fourfold or fivefold payment, not payment only in the specific case where the animal is sold after we heard that the owner despaired of its recovery. The sages respond to the sensei, this cannot enter your mind, since as explained above, the thief's sale of the animal must be similar to his slaughter of it. Therefore, just as the thief is liable to pay for full final payment for slaughtering the animal, even if it does so immediately, so too the halakha. The halakha that he pays the fourfold final payment is for selling. It applies even if he does so immediately before it is known that the owner has despaired for recovering the animal. Rabbi Yochanan said to Rabbi Elazar, the case of stealing a human being by kidnapping, the case of stealing a human being, kidnapping. In 6th grade in this Hasidic school, I remember this one kid said, I'm a human being. And then the Rebbe said, you're a human being. You're a bean. You're a human being. Anyway, reminded me of that. Stealing a human being, kidnapping, proves that your reasoning is incorrect. The Torah, his name was Rav Nute. Rav Neuter. The Torah states, The Torah states, and he who steals a man He who steals a man and sells him, or if he is found in his hand, he shall be put to death. Exodus 21:16, as well he should be. In this case, there is no owner's despair, as no one ever despairs of his own freedom. Consequently, the thief's sale of the person he kidnapped is invalid, and yet the Torah states that he is liable to receive the death penalty for selling him. One can learn by inference from this question that Rabbi Yochanan holds that if the thief sells the stolen animal before the owner's despair, he is liable to pay the fourfold or fivefold payment. The Gemara asks, if the thief sells the animal after the owner's despair, what is the halakha? Rabbi Yochanan says he is liable, and Rish Lakish says he is exempt. The Gemara elaborates, Rabbi Yochanan says he is liable as the thief's liability applies whether the animal is sold before the owner's despair or after its despair. Rish Lakish says he is exempt as the thief's liability is in effect only if he sells the animal before the owner's despair, but after the owner's despair there is no liability because the thief has acquired the animal by virtue of the owner's despair, and therefore it is his own animal, and he slaughters or his own animal that he sells. Rabbi Yochanan raised an objection to the opinion of Rish Lakish from a brida. If one stole an animal that he consecrated and subsequently slaughtered it, he pays a double payment to the owner of the animal, but he does not pay the fourfold or fivefold payment. The Torah states the one whom the judges convict shall pay double to his neighbor. Exodus 22:8. The word neighbor excludes the case of one who steals the consecrated item from the temple treasury. Since there is no double payment to the temple treasury, there can be no fourfold or fivefold payment either, as the fourfold or fivefold payment is considered an addition to, not a replacement of, the double payment. See 75:8. Therefore, a thief does not pay the fourfold or fivefold payment to the temple treasury for slaughtering one of its animals. The Gemara analyzes the Braita. When did the events described in the Braita occur? If we see they happen before the owner's despair, is the animal consecrated at all? A thief cannot consecrate a stolen item before the owner despairs and recovering it, and as the merciful one states in the Torah, and when a man shall sanctify his house to be holy unto the Lord, Leviticus 27:14, from which is derived, just as one house belongs to him, so too anything that one consecrates must belong to him, and therefore a thief cannot consecrate a stolen item. Rather, it is obvious that the Braita is dealing with events that occurred after the owner's despair, and yet the only reason that he does not pay the fourfold or fivefold payment is that he consecrated the animal on the grounds that when he slaughtered it, he slaughtered consecrated property. But if he did not consecrate the animal before he slaughtered it, he would have to pay the fourfold or fivefold payment. And if it enters your mind, the owner's despair serves to acquire the animal for the thief, why would he have to pay? At that point, it is his own animal that he slaughters, or his own animal that he sells. Reish Lakish. Pretty close. Nice. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, let's put it that way. Reish Lakish to Rabbi Yochanan. Okay, let's go fast. With what are we dealing here? The Braita is referring to a case that occurred before the owner's despair, and is it not the thief who consecrated the animal, as he cannot do so? Rather, we are dealing with a case where the owner consecrated the animal while it was still in the thief's possession. The Gemara answers, and is the animal consecrated in this situation? But didn't Rabbi Yochanan say, if one stole an item and the owner has not yet despaired of recovering it, neither of them is able to consecrate it? This one, the thief cannot consecrate the item because it does not belong to him, and that one, the owner, cannot consecrate it because it is not in his possession. The sages state, in answer on behalf of Reish Lakish, he stated his opinion in accordance with the opinion of the pious ones, the Kitsnuim, who acted not in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan. As we learned in a Mishnah Master Sheni 5:1, the pious ones, it's not Snum Menich and Samos. The pious ones would set aside some coins and say, anything that was picked from this vine by a passerby shall be desacralized onto these coins. This Mishnah is referring to a grapevine in its 4th year after planting. The grapes on this vine must be either eaten in Jerusalem or redeemed with money that is then taken to Jerusalem and spent on food. The fruit may not be eaten outside Jerusalem without being redeemed. The pious ones were concerned that a passerby might help himself to some of their grapes, thereby transgressing a prohibition. Therefore, they would redeem any of their grapes that might be picked and eaten by passerby. Evidently, these pious ones were of the opinion that the owner of the stolen item can redeem it despite the fact that it is no longer in his possession. Likewise, they would say, contrary to the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan, that an owner of the stolen item can consecrate it even though it is no longer in his possession. The Gemara asks a question with regard to Rish Lakish's explanation of the Brida. That is discussing a case where the owner of the animal consecrated it after it was stolen, but the principal amount, that is, the stolen animal itself, has returned to the owner. By consecrating the animal, the owner has exercised his ownership of it, and is therefore considered to have been returned to him, and that, at that point, the thief should therefore not be required to pay double payment, as the thief is liable for double payment only when the stolen item is in his possession at the time of the trial. As it states, the thief shall be found in his hand. Exodus 23. The Gemara answers the Bride discussing a case. The Bride discusses where the thief stood in judgment and was found guilty of theft before the owner consecrated the animal. Consequently, liability to pay a double payment preceded the owner's consecration of his property. The Gemara raises a difficulty with regard to this answer. What are the circumstances of this trial and the thief? It refers to a situation where the members of the court say to him, "Go out and give the animal back to its owner." Why does the Bride say that the thief is exempt from the fourfold or fivefold payment, specifically because the owner consecrated the animal before it was slaughtered? Even if he did not consecrate it, that thief should also not be liable to pay the fourfold or fivefold payment. The Gemara elaborates as Rava says, if the court tells the thief, go out and give the stolen animal back to the owner, and instead the thief slaughtered it or sold it, he is exempt from the fourfold or fivefold payment. What is the reason for this? Since the court has issued a definitive ruling in this matter, and he later slaughtered or sold the animal, he is considered a robber, and a robber does not pay the fourfold or fivefold payment. The difference between the thief concerning the Torah prescribes the double payment and the fourfold or fivefold payment, and therefore who does not incur these obligations is that a thief acts stealthily, whereas a robber brazenly uses force to take an item from its owner. Once a court has obligated, a thief must make restitution, and he has defied his sentence. He is considered a robber, and therefore he foretold of a fivefold. Therefore, the fourfold or fivefold payment and its atonement are not applicable to him. Nice. Just about done.